Hey guys, it's Spirit here, and welcome to another Archetype 101. Today we're looking at Green-Yellow Successor. And this archetype is really based around establishing yourself a board, and then using those battle cards and sacking them off to play other battle cards at the same cost. I think in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's either XYZ or... No, it's not XYZ, it's... I think it's Tuner. I believe Tuner, the ones that uses tuners. Anyways, essentially, if I have 6 energy cost worth of battle cards on the field, I can sack them all off and pay a cost to bring out another battle card. So you kind of like go up the chain like this. And specifically, this archetype revolves around androids and Universe 11. So, like I said, it uses the cost of battle cards on the board to bring out bigger bodies. The strategy can be either going from, like a 6-drop to a 6-drop to a 6-drop, or it could be playing battle cards that make themselves bigger to then be able to sack them off. So think like Krillin, where, if your Goku leader's awakened, he goes from being a 1-drop to a 4-drop. Cards like that synergize really well with the strategy. There's some minor strategies with old cards. Technically, you can cell chain up to one of the new cells, for example, or there are some Universe 11 cards that you're going to want to use, but because this is green-yellow, you're actually off color. We've had Android support in blue, where we're not seeing that this set. We've also had Universe 11 support in red, and we're not seeing that in this set either. So this really kind of keeps it within its own archetype. Very similar to what we saw with Universe 7, where Universe 7 was a rainbow strategy, but now we're seeing it play out more as a blue-red strategy. Here, these strategies are syncing towards green-yellow so that they can take advantage of Successor. Now we're going to take a look at the leaders. There's 3 leaders specifically, and then there's an older leader, so we'll just go through right now. So for the androids, we have Android 20. Once per turn, you get to activate main and look at the top 3, take an android, put it in your hand, then put the rest at the bottom of the deck. If you have a dense amount of androids, it means you're going to consistently be able to find what you want. For a lot of decks, this is going to be better than just drawing a card. Mostly because you're going to be able to choose what you want to add in. Granted, you have the density of androids needed. Then, at 4 life or less, you can untap 2 energy and awaken. And this brings you to Android 20, 17, and 18. So, this is all 3 cards, so any cards that benefit, any of the androids. On his awaken side, you get those benefits. Attacks, draws a card, very typical. And his activate main is, once per turn you can pay a green, and if you have no battle cards, you get to put a 3-drop or less android onto the battle area from your drop. So this essentially is a built-in catch-up mechanic. If you've fallen behind or your opponents manage to keep control of your board, this leader allows you to be able to bounce back by replaying battle cards to then let you go up the chain again. On the flip side, we have Cell, and Cell is the green-yellow burst leader. So he has some interesting abilities, but he's really tough to play around because, and by play around I mean play with, because he doesn't have inherent card draw. He has card quality. You're going to be able to constantly look at the top 5 cards of your deck and choose one and then pitch one from your hand. So that really means that your hand is full of quality cards, but the problem is you're never really plussing cards off of it. So if you're going to be building Cell, you're going to be relying on the fact that you're going to need extra cards or extra engines to mitigate the fact that you're really not seeing much. Frieza's Healing Pod I've seen is a good solution to that, because as we've seen what Android 20 kind of insinuates, a lot of your cards end up coming back from drop, and we see that with a lot of in-archetype cards. So we see that with Cell. Awaken Surge, you put a green-yellow under him, and he's a draw 2, untap 2. On his Awaken side, he has Activate Main once per turn. So it's not Activate Main / Battle this time, solely Activate Main, which does make a difference, but his abilities are more like defensive in terms of predicting your opponent's game plan, so it's not too bad. So at 4 life or less, you get to choose one of 2 things when you pull out a card from under him. Either your opponent gets to, anytime he plays a battle card, they come in rest mode, or you KO a card and then choose one of your opponent's cards in their hand and send it to drop or warp. Yeah, send it to drop. Like I said, he's very defensive. You're almost guaranteed, if you keep your opponent's board clean, you're almost guaranteed an extra turn, just due to the fact that his battle cards, your opponent's battle cards are never actually going to come in untapped, if that's what you choose to do. And he's got some control aspects to him. He's also green-yellow, which means it gives him access to more cards than something like a mono-green leader would, or a mono-yellow leader. However, he doesn't draw enough cards, and I think that's a lot of struggle that you're going to have to consider working around if you want to build Cell. Then finally we have Jiren. So Jiren, I think, falls under the category of just a generically good yellow leader. And I think for a lot of builds where we've seen yellow Broly take place, a lot of people would just play Jiren instead. Just because, you know, if you want a mono yellow leader that is just does stuff, and you don't have to commit completely to his archetype, then sure, why not? So when he attacks, you get a choice of two things. Either you can draw a card, or you can play a Universe 11 with a cost of 2 or less. Obviously, this goes towards, you know, establishing your board, essentially for free, and setting up to be able to succeed into bigger and bigger cards. And then if your life's at 4 or less, he's a draw 1, untap 1, and you restand him back to active mode, which is pretty relevant if you're trying to push through and put a lot of pressure. On his awakened side, we have full power Jiren, the Unstoppable. When he attacks, you draw a card, and then you pitch a card to then give him 5k power for the duration of the turn. He's a 20k attacker all the time. That's pretty relevant, especially now when we're trying, like, almost getting into, like, stallier metas. Control is way more powerful now than I think it's ever been. And what this essentially means is that your opponent, if they want to protect their life and they're not constantly negating, they're gonna have to keep negging cards. More so than they typically would, you know? Like, this is 2 5k combos. It's super relevant, and it can really put pressure on your opponent to push the game forward. Then he has an Activate Battle where you get to choose one card from your life, add it to your hand, and then so long as you have a Universe 11 on the board, he can't take damage. So if your opponent doesn't have a way to deal with, like, let's say a Barrier Universe 11 card, Jiren can't die. And that's super powerful. It essentially guarantees you get an extra turn depending on the deck your opponent's playing against, which is really big. And you don't have to commit negates. You don't have to commit combo. It just happens. And some decks will just straight outright not be able to beat that. One thing before we move on to, like, the actual cards of the archetype, Android 13 has also gotten some support. I haven't added his leader card here just because, like, I was running out of space and kind of ran out of time a little bit. But Android 13 got a couple of support cards in the form of... so he essentially pitches the card, which in itself I think is an Android 13 and 14, which helps with his Union Fusions. And then he takes some life, and then he makes your opponent pitch a card. So yeah, you got some consistency, quality of life cards added. Keep in mind that if Successor is something you want to do, you could also look at the Android 13 leader to be something to carry on that strategy. Talked about Successor a lot, establishing a board, but what are we establishing a board to go into? And first, we have our mid-rangers. First 6-drop here is Topo, Mortality Surpassed. So he's a Successor for green and yellow. So you're going to have 6 energies worth of battle cards on the field. Now, mind you, in the rules, Successor only works with cards that are either mono green, mono yellow, or green yellow. So you can't go off and be splashing blue battle cards or red battle cards. It really only needs to be the colors within the archetype for it to work at all. If you have those 6 energy worth of battle cards and you have a green and yellow, you send them to the drop and then you play Topo. So Topo, when you play him, or it is placed from your drop area by your battle area by his skill. So like we've said in our old Invoker video, a lot of battle cards right now in this set have things that, like, hey, if you get rid of me with a skill, like, I'm going to do something. And in Topo's case, he gets to choose up one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, negate that card's skill, and KO it. So he's getting rid of anything, even indestructible. So we've seen it come back with the Zamasu package, and if he's off to kill Topo somehow, then, or you just play him, you know you're going to be able to get rid of those really pesky indestructible double strikers. Then we have a 4-drop Dispo, Unpresented Speed. So him is just a 4-drop for 1 yellow. And then if your leader is a Universe 11, when you play him, or he's placed in the drop area from a battle area by skill, you get to draw a card. So that's cool. You know, we plus as we Successor. And then if he gets removed somehow, then we're just plussing even more from that. It's a good way to consolidate all those multiple bodies into just one big body. And then he also has barrier, so you know that he's probably going to stick on board for you to be able to use him later on in your chain. Then when we go on the Android side, we have 6-drop Cell, the Bower of the Masses. For green and yellow and 6 energies worth of stuff, he comes in, and when he does, he's very similar to the old, I think it was a 6-drop in the old Cell chain, where when he comes in, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and this time you ignore barrier, and you KO it, and then your opponent chooses a card from their hand and sends it to the drop. And then, if he's removed by a skill, you get to draw 3. Pretty good, you know? So they don't have barrier, they have an advantage that mitigates the fact that they don't actually have protection. And then finally, to round off the mid-rangers, we have Super 17 Total Eclipse. So you can see that the Successor archetype in terms of androids really covers like the whole spectrum of androids. This 6-drop has Barrier. He's a Successor for green and yellow. And if your leader is an android card, when this card attacks, it's placed in your drop area from your battle area by skill. You get to draw a card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and switch it to rest mode. So this one's seeing more instead of the KO side of it, we see the rest side of it. So obviously some cards are leaning more green, some cards lean more yellow. Once we get past the mid-rangers, we have the thick boys. So these are going to be your top ends. What you're really trying to get up to when you're using all this Successor stuff and getting there eventually. Super 17, Hellstorm's Unleashed. So he's a 9-drop. So you're going to need 9 energies worth, which actually, when you consider, you know, a rival and cards in the archetype that make themselves bigger, isn't actually that bad. But he's not coming out sooner than turn 3 because he's green, green, yellow. But when you play him, he's got a really powerful skill where if your opponent's been delaying or playing really defensive, he comes down and says, okay, you go down to 4 life. No matter your opponent's life total, they're going and dropping, critting down to 4. Pretty relevant, you know. With the coming of Surges, we've seen a lot of motivation to stay at 5, 6, you know, high life totals because you can. Why would you go lower if you don't need to? And this is really saying, okay, well, I'm about to put, you know, the hard brakes on that, and you're going to start playing at my speed. Then when he attacks, you get to draw a card and then rest 2 of your opponent's cards. Super relevant. Like I said, the Android 17 stuff leans more on the yellow aspect of it, and he's more tempo oriented. You know, we're going to stop you from doing what you want to do, and I'm going to go in and really make your life a pain in the ass. He's got critical, so 30k crit's a pretty good battle card to get in there, especially when if your opponent doesn't negate, well, he's not going to have the energy up to negate afterwards anyways. Like I said, Android 13 got some support. So if you run this 7-drop, he has an activate main where once per turn, if your leader is an Android 13 card, you get to choose 3 Android cards in your drop area and place them on bottom of the deck in any order. You get to choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, KO it, and then your opponent chooses 2 cards in their hand, places them in their drop area. So it sounds like this does a lot, but you have to remind that like he doesn't have protection really, he doesn't get around barrier. And you need 3 androids in your drop to send to the bottom of the deck, which isn't too bad because, you know, you probably successored a bunch of androids away to play him anyways. And in Android 13, you have a bunch of archetype cards that pitch a bunch of themselves into the drop anyhow to be able to draw more cards and self-awaken. He's okay. He's got double strike also, but he's not busted. You know, I think it's a mediocre card. Then if we have the big, thick, cell, unthinkable protection, Triple Striker. He's a Successor for 4 energy for a total of 9 battle cards worth. And then if your leader card is an android card, when you play this card with Successor, so you can't cell chain up to him, it's not going to do anything. You're going to have a Triple Striker, cool, but he's not going to get a skill if you just do the cell chain, which makes me wonder why they got rid of 3-drop cell. Like, at this point, you have to remember, and I'm going to go on like a quick 20-second rant here. They said they got rid of 3-drop cell because he limits design. But then the cell that they gave us after like 5 sets is like can only be used with Successor. So why did we lose 3-drop cell? You know, I'm fine with them thinking like it's just too strong, but it'd be great if they were just honest about the fact that cell chain was too powerful or something like that, even though it's like not. Anyways, I digress. That was my rant for the moment. So when Cell comes in, he looks at 3 cards in your opponent's hands, and your opponent has to reveal them. So it's not a random pick. You pitch the 3, and then your opponent's leader loses his leader skills for the turn. So that includes like being able to awaken surge leaders. It means losing protection. It's pretty relevant and actually decently powerful if you can get it off. And then finally, we have Thick Boy Jiren, Strength in Silence. And I think this is one of the most hype Successor cards besides the one we're about to talk to right afterwards. And he comes down for 5. He has Quad Strike because like every good Jiren card has Quad Strike. And when he comes in, you get to choose 3 Universe 11. They can be from your hand or your battle area. Send him to drop, and he's not affected by any of your opponent's skills. And that's crazy, right? Funny enough, that also means negates. Jiren can't be negated. You can use them, but it won't do anything to him. So in that sense, he's just like a really powerful Awakened Power Goku, where his attacks can be negated. You can't neg him. Really, if he procs off his ability, you're going to get Quad Strike attacked. The only thing that really stops that is Blocker, because Blocker doesn't effectively like do anything to the card itself. It just redirects. So Blocker will work, but otherwise, if they manage to get 10 energies worth of battle cards and like go up to this, you're probably going to find yourself having a real hard time. And to round out the thickest boy, Cell Zeno. Like I said, like you can't even cell chain to this guy because he's not a real cell. He's a Cell Zeno. Anyways, Quad Strike, Ultimate, Deflect. He has Deflect. I didn't even know that. Obviously, I haven't played against it. And he's Successors for free. So you don't even have to do energy for it. You just have to go through your game plan like you regularly would. And then Successor for free, boom. As long as you have 12 energy on your board. And he comes in. And then if you have 5 or more energy, when you play this card, choose up to 3 cards in your opponent's hands. This time you don't get the reveal, but that's fine. You've probably done enough hand ripping throughout the game for it to matter. And then they go to the drop. And then he gains dual attack. So you effectively got 4 free after you did all your big plays with your Jiren or your androids or like anything like that. Once you got through all of that, then your opponent has to deal with the fact that he's probably taken 2 quad strikes to the face. Assuming he like protected himself from the other stuff before, this thing's probably just closing out the game. It is very powerful. And I disagree with the fact that Successor should be free. Like it should cost something. But regardless, this card's super good. And is definitely the thing. He's one ugly mother. Like, he's not pretty, but is he ever effective? Now we get into the support. I'm going to start off by saying there is so much support in this set for, like, Successor. And that's because, you know, you have the Android side of it and the Jiren side of it. And they didn't really half-ass the support for both of them. Both sub-archetypes, like, got a lot of support. So I probably missed it. You know, tell me in the comments down below what I missed. Like, none of the Android 13 stuff is here, and that's just, that was a choice I made because I'm not trying to highlight Android 13 here, but there's those cards that I didn't show at all. So, for the Androids, first off, we have these Free Hans type of cards where when you combo with them, they come in. They also have the benefit that you can take a life, and the yellow one gives you a green energy back, and the green one lets you KO a battle card that costs 3 or less if you're taking some life. You have to take life for the both of them. It has to be either 1 or 2. So obviously this is a way to, for 1 energy, get yourself a 3-drop on board. They also help with tempo. The yellow one being better, you know, defensively or offensively if you're trying to just power out a bunch of them. And then the green one is just like KO card. It's good if you need some tempo on that end. We have Quick Sweep Android 17. So he has a permanent where if there's a cell on board, he becomes a 3-drop. So now we're starting to see, you know, like, okay, so if I play for 1, he's effectively 3. And for Activate Main, if there's no cards in your battle area, you get to play him in your drop area for 1 green. So it means that you're going to be able to recur this Android non-stop regardless of what happens. Cell, Android Absorber. He also comes from the drop area. However, he comes in if there's an Android 17 on board. And when he comes in, your opponent has to drop a card. And if he gets removed by a skill, you get to find yourself an Android 18 and put her on board. Then we have the Championship Pack 2020, Android 18. She's worth a pretty penny right now. She has Energy Exhaust, obviously. If you have 5 cards or less in your hand, which, you know, like the Burst Cell Eater typically does, it doesn't have a huge hand, so it's likely that it's just going to be a free 10k because her combo cost gets reduced by 1 in your hand and on the board. So she's a free 10k combo. And then once you're done comboing her away, so she's a great setup for arrival plays. When she's in your drop, if there's only cell cards in your battle area, you can pay 1 green to play her, and then you can't play another copy of her for this turn. Which is also very interesting, too. They started saying, if we go off of this card, copy of this card. They don't no longer say, like, print out the entire text, you know, Android 18, Perfection's Prey. Just a fun note to say. They haven't done this before, so they're starting now. And again, more support, get stuff on board. Android 17, Titan Toppler. I think he essentially says, like, if your opponent has a board and you don't have a board, you can play him for free. And then when you play him, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, negate his skills for duration of a turn. So he does stuff, nothing crazy, but, you know, it's there. So the green-yellow super combo lets you get a green or yellow battle card of 4 or less and send it to your drop. So this is setting up all these, you know, play from drop area plays. When it comes to Frieza's healing pod, it's a really good setup to make sure you're getting the cards there to get your draw engine going. It also, you know, again, free green-yellow. Makes it really easy to rival with. Last one, a 1-drop Android 20. You can pay 3 to play some androids from your drop area. So nothing crazy, but fills up the board. Then if we look at the support for Universe 11, essentially the Universe 11 support is, the way he works is mostly you play Jirens, to play your other weenies for free. Sometimes with their skills negated, some not. So like we saw with the leader, but effectively on the battle card. So for this Jiren, when you play him, you get to choose 2 of your Universe 11s from your hand or your drop area with different names with cost of 2 or less, and you get to play them with their skills negated. With this promo Jiren, activate main if your leader's Universe 11 card, and you place a card in your drop area from your hand, you get to choose 2 Universe 11 cards with energy cost of 1 in your drop area and play them with their skills negated. Whoop. And then finally we have a negate, which says negate the attack and then play a 2-drop from your hand or drop. So what are we trying to play with? Essentially this cheat engine that's trying to establish our board for us for not only the thick Jiren, but also just general successor plays. So we have Kunshi. He gives all of your Universe 11's barrier. Very relevant in the counterplay heavy meta we're in. We have binary. So when he's played or sent to the drop area by a skill, you get to go search for a 1-drop, play it. So you could search up Kunshi. So yeah, he has his skills negated, but once you pass the turn, all your cards are gonna have barrier again. And then if we look on the green ones, we have Coquette. She plays herself for free if you have a Universe 7 leader, a battle card on board that's a Universe 11. You can pitch her and play her. So again, free. You get to constantly proc it off. Zorue goes and he procs off 1-drops. And then finally Topo, Gaze of Justice. He essentially makes your opponent drop a card from their hand. So an array of 1-drops and 2-drops with like not crazy skills, and a lot of times their skills come in negated, but a lot of them have activate mains. In the case of Kunshi, like he's giving your cards barrier, meaning they're going to stick around. So it's way more of a weenie strategy than we saw with previous strats in the old Tournament Power Universe 11 archetype. And finally, let's talk arrivals. Arrivals are huge when we're talking about Successor. You know, when we're thinking about what cards we're trying to get out, we have to, you know, we have 7-drops, 9-drops. And what cards like Ribrianne, Krillin, SS Broly effectively say is, hey, you arrival me in, and oftentimes, like let's say with the Android 18 championship card, or with Dr. Gero, like that's 1 card and then a couple of energy, and you're already bumping yourself up to a 4-drop or a 6-drop. And that's probably why we've seen, that's actually guaranteed why we're seeing the prices of Super Saiyan Broly go up. Because for 2 energy, being able to either rest a card and then draw a card, or KO something like a boss monster from your opponent is super huge. It's great defensively, and you're also going to be able to go up your successor chain right after. And they're all good. Honestly, all these are the green-yellow arrivals. I think I caught all of them. They're all removal, and like in Krillin's case, it makes your opponent pitch a card. They're all very good, and if you're running some kind of successor strategy, I think you have to run a number of arrivals. You're slowing yourself down so much otherwise, and you're not giving yourself the opportunity to really hit the ceiling of where the strategy can take it. So that's my 101 on green-yellow successor. I know I rambled on a bit. Sorry about that. This ended up coming out as a bit of a longer video. But honestly, you could take this deck any other way. I think it's a very splashable archetype. Sure, you can only succeed away green, yellows, or green and yellow cards. But because you can get a bunch of things back from drop, or you have a bunch of cards in the archetypes that let you find what you need, I think there's a lot of different ways you can build it, and that SCR is like stupid busted. Like, it is so good and free to just have that, and it's definitely something to watch out for. So how are you going to build Green Yellow Successor? Let me know in the comments below. If you like these videos, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot, helps out the channel. And I'm looking forward to going through the rest of these set 9 archetypes with you in our next episode the rest of the week. So see you guys on the next one. Ciao.